From Thanos to Kang, can the MCU do the same type of build-up they did for Endgame? Let's talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. What up, guys? Bobo here with BrassReel Movie Reviews. Thanks for coming back for some more popcorns. So you remember the days of the MCU where it was just pretty much guaranteed you were going to the theater to see an MCU movie, it was gonna be a banger. I mean, you literally weren't even afraid. You were just like, oh man, I can't wait to see the next MCU film because it's gonna be awesome. And it was pretty much like that up until Endgame. Slowly after Endgame, it started to kind of change, and basically what I've said is that back then, they were making these MCU films that you could show to casuals. You could show to people that weren't comic book fans. Literally saying, look, I know you don't like comic book movies and all that stuff, but you have to watch Iron Man. You just have to see this movie. I'm telling you, you're gonna like it. Even my mom was liking those movies. Now, they're just making them much more for the comic book fan. The casuals aren't gonna be able to enjoy this as much anymore. With that being said, I really did enjoy Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. I liked it a little better than Wakanda Forever, and I liked Wakanda Forever. I like it about as equal as Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness. Definitely better than Thor Love and Thunder.
You flipped too hard, damn it!
And I honestly did find myself interested the entire time. The humor's still there, all that's still there, except it's just totally different from the first two films in location and sort of tone. The first two, they're all just kind of heist-ish movies. This one, while there's a heist element, it's straight up galactic, or quantum, if you will. Totally in another world that nobody's used to in this Ant-Man universe yet. So everybody's back from the first two films. Michelle Pfeiffer, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas. However, I did miss the David Miscavige, T.I., and Michael Pena. Nothing in this movie of them, which they were kind of that returning comedy in the last two films. But honestly, this movie didn't have room for that because they are pretty much in the quantum realm almost immediately in the film. And it takes off really quickly. It's a lot of fun. And I feel they do a pretty good job of moving really fast with it, but not making it feel like it was too fast. The only real new addition to the returning cast is Cassie, played by Kathryn Newton. And to me, that's kind of one of my little nitpicks. Because in Endgame, she was played by Emma Fuhrmann, which first off, Kathryn Newton did a fine job. She did great. But I don't see what added anything to the character by switching actors. And for me, continuity is kind of important. I mean, say what you will, we're always going to remember that whole weird, odd thing with the Incredible Hulk being Ed Norton, and in the first Iron Man, Rhodey being Terrence Howard. All that was fine, but they were forced to switch it because of other reasons behind the scenes. Point I'm trying to make is that is a little bitty, thing that sticks out. It always does for me, at least. So I wish they would have kept Emma Fuhrmann, but I'm sure they had their reasons with going with Kathryn Newton, and she did a fine job. Another thing I liked about this movie, too, is that it wasn't just Ant-Man being the only big main character. Yes, it does follow him in the sense of, in the beginning, we're catching up with where he is. So we start out sort of in the eyes of Ant-Man. But for the rest of the movie, it's definitely a team movie. Everyone is the main character. Douglas, Pfeiffer, Newton, Lilly, they're all main characters in this along with Paul Rudd. And we have introductions of new characters in the quantum realm that they're in, which is fun. They did a really cool creative job of creating this world that exists in the quantum realm. So all of that I really enjoyed. It kept the movie very entertaining as you're going on. You felt like you were exploring with them as they're entering this quantum realm. Now, the biggest addition to this and to the MCU completely was the introduction of Kang, played by Jonathan Majors. He did a fantastic job, but we all already knew that he was an awesome actor. He eats up the screen when he's on it, and he is that in this movie. You love every bit of him, and he's very powerful. They show him, he's just very in control, and he's up to no good for sure. And the way that they introduce him is really cool because it expands on Michelle Pfeiffer's backstory more. You've already seen Kang the Conqueror in Loki, and he's already talked about how there's multiple versions of him. But anyways, every time Majors was on screen, I loved it. I was salivating, it was awesome. My only complaint with this whole thing is that he's supposed to be the next major MCU villain threat across multiple films. And one of the things they did with Thanos is they were definitely teasing Thanos way before we ever saw him actually materialize in Infinity War. Hell, at the very beginning of the first Avengers movie, we were teased with Thanos, and we were teased with him way many more times in other films, whether it be post-credits, them referring to him, but there was this really awesome build-up over years for Thanos, to where when we finally saw him on the screen, it was just like, oh, we were all really afraid of him. They should have done that with Kang. They should have built up Kang's name, implemented him here and there in some post-credit scenes over some time, to where now we're finally seeing him, and it really is sort of fearful. There's been all this hype about this character, and now we're kind of afraid of him. Yeah, they showed him once in Loki, but they needed to do it more than that. In my opinion, it just would have allowed this character to have more of a threat behind him. But I don't want that to take away with how great Jonathan Majors did in this movie, because he did, and it was awesome. And Kang is going to be around for a while. He is going to be a huge villain. I don't want to say any more. And that's not spoiling anything. They've mentioned that hardcore in the press and everything. Hell, one of the upcoming Avengers movies is called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. So if his threat would have been built up more over time in past movies, he would have just had more of an impact as a villain in this film and moving forward. That's pretty much what separates this movie from being amazing to just being really good. Now, probably my favorite part of the movie was MODOK. We've all seen that little clip of MODOK in the trailer. And if you're an old school fanboy, a comic book fan, you know exactly who MODOK is. And it's been really weird the way he's been written. Occasionally he's been menacing, depending on who's writing him in the comics. And then sometimes they really just depict him like a loser. For me, the way they depicted him in this movie really worked. I loved it. And he's in the movie a lot. He's kind of like one of the main characters or side characters. He's not just a glimpse here and there. I was really curious the way they were going to handle this character, because Kevin Feige had always talked about, yeah, MODOK's going to show up in the MCU at some point. And now that I finally see it, I'm really happy with the way that they did it. And the movie does bring something all full circle from part one, like a trilogy should, like any part 3 movie should do. However, I don't know if I could recommend this movie to just the casual out there, like I could of Iron Man or Captain America or any of the previous Marvel movies before Endgame. This one is definitely much more for the sci-fi fan, for the comic book fan, for the fantasy fan. Paul Rudd's still great, comedy's all there. They used to just be movies that were awesome that happened to be about comic book characters. Now they're full-on comic book movies. But I do like this one, and I do see it slowly correcting the course that Chapek got us in with the MCU. I will put it in the collection. I do recommend going to see this movie because it does continue on the MCU storyline and legacy, and it sets up a lot of things coming up in the future. And definitely stay tuned for the post-credit scenes. So Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, I say, is real decent. Well, that'll do it for this for you guys. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you can help us make it to the top. And as always, life gives you lemons. Make some hot, fresh popcorns.